All right, so yeah, so I'm here to talk about African dance as a culturally appropriate way for African Americans to get aerobic exercise. And it may, in fact, as we heard from the speaker just prior to me, be a really good strategy to lower one's risk for Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. So again, I pulled this from National Institute on Aging website. There's a lot of work being done, including the EXERT study, looking at this area of exercise and risk of AD and cognitive function. And right now, NIA is not ready to come out and definitively say, yes, exercise, and in particular aerobic exercise, will lower your risk of dementia. But we're getting close. And one of the reasons why they're not willing to kind of say that definitively is because the work that's been done previously were mostly studies of association. So people who exercised tended to have a lower risk of dementia. So the studies that I've pulled here, there are clinical trials, randomized trials with a clinical group, an intervention group, and a control group. And there's a lot of work being done in this space. So we hope that we're going to be able to confirm that soon and say that aerobic exercise and perhaps other types of exercise will lower your risk of dementia. But even though we can't definitively say that, we do know that exercise has a lot of other benefits aside from lowering the risk of dementia. There are cardiovascular benefits, lowers the risk of depression, lowers the risk of diabetes, fall prevention, all kinds of things. And we do know that it is relatively low risk and you can undertake it at little to no cost. So one of the issues that remains is getting people to exercise more. And this is a chart that I pulled from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the green line, close to the bottom, is 55 and over. And you can see that there are some peaks and valleys in that line, but basically less than 20% of people 55 and over, just focusing on that age group, participate in exercise. So even if we find out that exercise can lower the risk of dementia, the issue remains, how do we get people to exercise more? And African Americans compared to non-Hispanic Caucasians tend to exercise less. We do know that African Americans have a higher risk of dementia compared again to non-Hispanic Caucasians. And also, African Americans continue to be underrepresented in our research. There are strategies out there that are being undertaken. This is changing, it's changing slowly. We need more strategies to involve more African Americans in research because we don't understand what the health disparity is because we're not studying African Americans. And even if we did understand the disparity, we wouldn't know exactly how we should go about addressing it. So University of Pittsburgh, Kirk Erickson at University of Pittsburgh, and I collaborated in a study called REACT, Rhythm Experience in Africana Culture Trial. And this was funded, it was a 3-year pilot study funded by the Alzheimer's Association. And basically it started with an idea that, you know what, if we can offer African dance as an aerobic exercise to African Americans, maybe they'll want to do it, maybe they'll want to get involved in the study, and if we can show that it lowers the risk of dementia, that's even better. So this was a 3-year collaboration. We had a site here at Penn and we had a site at Pitt. This is the second cohort that we had in this study along with our African dance instructor and study coordinators. And we enrolled people 60 to 80 years old, and they were randomly assigned to either a 6-month African dance intervention where they met 3 times a week for an hour, or a 6-month African history and culture education and discussion group that also met hourly, 3 times a week over 6 months. And we did a series of pre and post tests with the groups. And we, wanted to see if we could make a difference. The aims of this, because it was a pilot study, were first of all to document feasibility. We thought it was a good idea, but we hadn't done it yet. Could we do it? Could we pull this off in the community? Would there be interest? Would it really make recruitment and enrollment faster? Would people keep coming back because they enjoyed it? 6 months can be a long time. We wanted to establish infrastructure both at Pitt and at Penn to conduct the study and also start to build a foundation, because if we found out that this works, we'd want to disseminate it widely to other groups across Pennsylvania and across the United States and beyond. And then we also had in our pre and post test measures for cognitive performance, quality of life, mood or fitness levels, and we compared our intervention African dance group to our education control group. So our outcomes were that we found out it was feasible. We hit a lot of barriers, a lot of things that were unexpected anytime you undertake research like this. There were all kinds of things that happened, but we found out we could both do it. We both had 2 cohorts that went through this study, so we were successful in demonstrating this. People were interested. Recruitment did go faster. We had lots of interest in it. People came back. And retention was good. And actually, we knew that we had to make our control group as interesting and as much fun as the African dance group, because we had to have those people come back for 6 months as well. And we were able to do that. So unfortunately, with all the problems that we ran into and the barriers and getting it off the ground and keeping it going, we ended up not finding a difference in the cognitive measures that we used. So that was a little disappointing, but it was a pilot study. And we think the reason why we didn't see the differences was because we didn't have enough subjects enrolled in the study. So next steps in the REACT study are Kirk Erickson at Pitt has a 5-year NIA-funded study to expand this, to enroll more subjects, to look at African dance versus an education and control group. And he's doing MRIs and he's doing fitness measures. One of the things we did see a difference in was weight. People in the dance group actually lost weight compared to the control group. So, thank you. So, again, and Kirk decided he really needed the budget in Pitt to do multiple sites in Pitt. So this next 5-year study is centered around University of Pittsburgh. But so I started to think about what we could do as a next step at Penn. And again, we're left with this issue of how do we get people to exercise more and dissemination. Because one of the issues that we ran into was finding professional African dance instructors who could commit to teaching for 6 months, 3 times a week. A lot of them were performers, and we have somebody who was wonderful and the students loved them, and then all of a sudden they were off to Europe for a week or 2, and we couldn't find a substitute. So those were some of the issues that we ran into. We finally did find someone who worked in a school, and she was wonderful as well, and she was very consistent. But what we've decided to focus on at the University of Pennsylvania is something around dissemination. So I'm putting together a study that will go in later this summer in July, an NIA 5-year study in R01 that will be a randomized trial looking at a train-the-trainer intervention. So we're going to be doing it for 6 months, but along with our dance instructor leading the classes, she will also be working heavily with 1 or 2 volunteers in the group who will be able to be trained and take over as class leaders. And we're going to develop a lot of resources, including full-length videos of classes and written materials and all kinds of instruction and support. And we're hoping that this train-the-trainer model is successful, and then we'll be able to really widely disseminate this if we find out it works. Thank you.